The only thing about RADwood that is confirmed by everyone here is if you go to a RADwood event, it's going to be one of the funnest car shows you're ever going to go to. That's one thing I'll say. It's going to be an incredible all-round experience. That's what I'll say about RADwood.
That's exactly what I wanted from you, James. So anyways, Art, welcome to the show. It's great to have you.
Hey, Art.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Are you in California right now?
I am, yeah, I'm in Northern California. Silicon Valley is probably the easiest way to put it, between San Francisco and San Jose.
Okay. Where every house, no matter what the size, is worth like $2 million or something, right? I mean,
this is
unfortunately
true.
Yeah.
yeah, unfortunately, that is the case.
Well, Art, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about you and RADwood, and then Taro and James and I will start coming in and just bombarding you with wonderful questions, because the whole RADwood thing, it kind of has to deals with our era. I thought James was a little too young, but maybe he said he wasn't. So go ahead, take it away, Art.
Yeah. Thanks for the intro. And I mean, my name is Art Cervantes. Also part of the Driving While Awesome podcast, and evidently RADwood. I'm the CEO and co-founder of that organization. But my background historically has been sort of in tech and all that, but I've always been a huge car guy. I was kind of born into it, grew up around a shop my whole life. And, my first cars were 80's cars, first because they were attainable and, or 90's cars. At the time, the 80's cars were cheaper because we were in the 90's, right? Late 90's, early 2000s. And, you bought like the coolest 80's cheap car you could get. Fortunate for us, at least our generation, these cars are analog yet just, modern enough to where they have fuel injection and they start easily, and they're, they have some creature comforts, and they're not just dumping gas on your feet or whatever. Like James McKeon, when he was born in the 1920s. I mean, that was kind of the norm.
It's exactly that. That's
I like our guest already.
And he was the guy who would pump the oil pressure in the passenger seat for his driver and stuff like that.
I was the only one daring enough to go and drive with someone else.
That's right. So that's kind of where my love and passion started for these cars. Obviously, I grew up in the era too, and like seeing, brand new E30 M3s. And I remember just, a couple days ago, someone was talking about BMW M Technique convertibles, and those cars have been kind of a niche, weird kind of car that, people just kind of thought it's a body kit, whatever. And in recent months, even, not even in the last year, I'd say, they've become pretty popular and actually are being appreciated now. And I remember seeing one of those for the first time. A family friend had one, and it was a black one that he bought to complement his E30 M3. And like seeing that for the first time and sitting in it, I still remember the M-Rain fabric or the M-Tech fabric interior, like just such a cool car, right? So that I was very impressionable at that time. And then of course the early cars were of the era, and so that has always stuck with me. And I've been involved in kind of like some marketing, like motorsport type stuff over the years. As a matter of fact, I don't know if Taro remembers, because I've known Taro for about 10 years now, but I don't know if he remembers the first time we met. It's kind of things kind of, fade when you see each other so much in this.
Yeah, you were at GoPro
industry.
when we first met.
That's right. Yeah. So I was actually at the GoPro booth, and I think Taro was like recording a piece about something, and we had the Pikes Peak race car there that had just broken the world record in 2011. And so I was in charge of that project. I spearheaded that whole thing. So I was by the car, and like, I think you interviewed me, right?
Yeah.
we talked about the car. So yeah, I've been involved with cars pretty much my whole life, big gearhead. And so the podcast came first. I got involved with a guy, Brian McQueen, who also worked at GoPro with us. And so they're all from the area. And we decided, let's talk about cool car stuff that you would normally do in your backyard with your friends, drinking over beers. And that sort of snowballed into something bigger and building community and driving events. And sort of our focus was 80's and 90's cars still, right? Because they're attainable. They're that balance too of modernity and analogness that we like is really where that whole thing kind of focused, because we like things that are kind of lightweight, not super powerful, that handle well, blah, 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 blah. But yeah, I mean, I can tell you sort of how RADwood came out of that now, or if you have any questions, I can stop now. But I'll have a sip
Oh,
of
you're on
coffee.
a roll, man. Keep going. I want to hear how RADwood started
Yeah,
out.
so how did that happen? How did RADwood happen? I want to hear.
Yeah. So with the guys at the podcast, we had talked about putting on some kind of a hill climb event that was relevant to our generation, right? And doing some kind of event around that. And the dream has always been Hearst Castle. Are you guys familiar with that place?
Oh, yeah.
So the driveway that goes up Hearst Castle is a pretty epic drive. And so our dream is like, all right, we do our own kind of Goodwood style event, but we do a hill climb up to Hearst Castle, and then we display the cars at the top, and we incorporate like vintage trains and and old school boats down at the dock and like all this other stuff. But that was just kind of a joke that we had, our dream scenario, we would do that. And then we put on our first kind of multi-day driving event, a road rally, right? It was called the Coastal Range Rally. And originally the focus was for 80s and 90s cars, because we didn't have a place to drive our cars. Like all of the rallies out there are either vintage cars, like pre-1975, which I call a metal bumper classic. And then you have your modern supercar stuff, right? And there wasn't anything in between. And we're like, hey, we have, I had a 993, we had an E30 amongst us, 944, E36 M3. And it's like, we should definitely like put something on for, not only our generation, but people who are interested in these cars, right? Because there's definitely a fan base and a community around all these cars.
Yeah.
And so we all have some event background, and, we all know roads in the area, and we have a lot of driving experience. So we're like, let's just go for it. And we marketed it through the podcast. It was very successful. And that was 4 or 5 years ago now. And since then we've done, a couple of these events a year, and they've become kind of like a destination for people from all over the country. And, it's the best kind of curated roads in Northern California, mostly some Southern California roads, close up to the Oregon border. And so we do, obviously food and, good, vista points and gathering points. And it's a big social event, big networking event for people. And it's a lot of automotive journalists, people from the industry, racers, shop owners, and of course, enthusiasts and kind of fans of our podcast and stuff that join us. And so from that, we're like, okay, we like to drive our cars. Like, how about like celebrating them somewhere, right? And so got threw around that idea and talked to a few friends of ours and who, also had similar ideas. And from that, we're like, let's just go for it. Let's give it a shot, right? Let's put on our own version of Goodwood revival, basically, and like, do the period correct dress, period correct music, period correct cars, to really celebrate the era and the lifestyle beyond the cars and to make it more entertaining. And, one of the guys on the podcast, Warren, he kind of made the term RADwood from, Goodwood and rad, and just kind of portmanteaued that whole thing. And it's it makes sense, right? It's use a relevant name. Yeah. Relevant word of the era and everything. And, we were all throwing around ideas, and that was the one that stuck. And it was definitely a good one. So we put on our first event in 2017 up here in San Francisco. And I just booked like a marina, basically a parking lot. And one thing that we were really keen on doing is ensuring that we had a cool environment, right? And I'm really kind of focused on ensuring that we build a cool ambiance around the cars, a really cool experience, not only for the people there, right? Because just like Lufka Cult does, right? Like it's it's cool to see things staged in certain ways and all that, but also to make it as Instagrammable as possible, right? You want it to be very photogenic, and you want people to share the content and make great content out of this. So there we had sort of part of the San Francisco skyline in the background. We had the San Francisco Bay, and then a very early 90s IBM building behind us. So it was just kind of like the perfect atmosphere. And so, yeah, it went well. We actually, it's kind of crazy because we didn't really market it at all. Like it was just, it was kind of a litmus test. We threw out a couple things on Instagram, and then we mentioned it on our podcast and said, we're going to have a boombox on a car. We're going to put 80s, 90s beats on, bring your 80s and 90s cars, and make sure you dress up, right? And that was it. And then the day of, we didn't know if we are going to have 10 cars or 50, and we ended up with about 150. And we had about 500 people show up, and we're like, whoa, okay, there's definitely something here, right? And we definitely struck a chord here with people of this era and generation ultimately. And so, you know, it was an awesome event. And then one of our buddies, who's a photographer, did a phenomenal job capturing the event. And we posted it on our website on drivingwhileawesome.com. And I had been talking to Patrick George at Jalopnik at the time about covering the event, but he was, you know, super busy. And at the time it was like, okay, well, is it something even worth flying out to? Like, I don't have anyone out there right now. And Andrew's down in SoCal. Like, but you know, after he saw the shoot and he saw what it was, he featured it on Jalopnik. And then from there we got a ton of publicity and it kind of snowballed, and, you know, and all that. And so we decided to put on another event a little more professionally, a little more comprehensive, with proper food and, you know, and all that kind of stuff, and more entertainment. And that was our event in 2017 in Orange County. In that event, we had about 400 cars. It was like 380-ish, and then, you know, some came and went. And we invited a lot of the media out, and got a ton of coverage there. We're on the cover of Auto Week, and we had about something like 2,500 people or something like that show up. And we had a BMX exhibition, of course, live DJ, and we brought out Martin Aparicio, who was actually the star in the movie Rad, that you know, the BMX freestyle movie of the 80's. And so we had him come out, and then a couple other guys do some BMX tricks and stuff. And yeah, just, you know, encourage people to break dance and all that. And we, of course, we have awards, and one of the awards is Raddest Dressed. And I think it was Lynn Woodward who won Raddest Dressed from, who's Lynn with now? Is she with, I don't know who she's with. Is she with KBB or?
I think she's with KBB.
Yeah. And so she won Raddest Dressed as, I think it was like a Madonna or Cyndi Lauper. Like, you know, she was all decked out. So it just kind of goes to show, you know, people really went all out and like got in the spirit of the show. We had Richard Chen famously flew down from, he's an interesting guy. He's from Japan, and he goes all in. He always dresses up to the nines, and he flew out, rented a Volkswagen Cabriolet, a white on white one, but flew out from the San Francisco Bay Area to LA with a briefcase, like a stainless steel briefcase with like a pelican case cutout of fake cocaine, and a stack of $100 bills, and an old Motorola, you know, brick phone.
Yeah.
And that's all he took. And he went through security, and they tested everything, and it was kind of a big deal. And he was on several news sites because of it. It worked out great, and we got a lot of publicity out of it. But he went for the day, you know, kind of hung out and partied with us, and then flew back the same day. Like that's how big of a deal it was to him to participate in something like this, that it was so relevant and important. And so it's people are pretty passionate about it. And from then, you know, obviously we've had a lot of events all over the country. We have had one international show. We had one event at Goodwood, our namesake, in the UK. And yeah, it's been a wild ride.
You have the Back to the Future folks too, right? That show up all the time.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Anything. I mean, it's pretty wild. You know, there's anything that's relevant of the era. We definitely have the Back to the Future folks. We've had Jurassic Park trucks. Like a lot of movie cars come out, real ones. This is kind of an interesting one. We had the original VW bus from Fast Times at Ridgemont High, but of course it's an old 60s bus.
The Spicoli van.
Yeah, it's Spicoli's van, exactly.
Yeah.
And it was Spicoli's van was there with all the, you know, accessories and everything, all the little gadgetry and memorabilia that he had in the movie. And it's obviously not an 80s or 90s car, but it's definitely of the era, right? It's it's something that was celebrated then, and it's important. So we, but yeah, we do have some exceptions like that. But in this case, it being, you know, something super cool, where it's you know, a kind of a pop icon.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what is I guess you get this asked all the time, but like, what's the criteria in getting your car in the show?
Yeah, so you know, that's a great question, and it kind of ties in to what I'm saying now. Is that RADwood, you know, we're pretty inclusive, especially compared to a lot of shows where, you know, they're very strict about, you know, the condition of the car and all this kind of stuff. And we want it all, and it just has to be an 80s or 90s car. Like, it's pretty straight up. Like, we've had, I mean, if you scroll back up there, you'll see, you know, I mean, obviously there's some cool, weird, obscure cars here, but look at that Celica right there. Like, it's just an old Celica with a bra, you know, with a leather bra. I think it was a little bit lower. Sorry, you're scrolling through Instagram right now for the folks who are listening. But see that like silver Celica, like that would be in,
Oh,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
because and you know the reason being is that of course it's of the era and everything, but the fact that someone brought that to a car show and someone treasures it is super cool, you know. And it's usually a younger kid or someone who it's like their first car, and they're so excited to have a place where they feel, you know, included and welcome and all that kind of stuff. And we've had a lot of cars like this. We've had like, you know, super stock silver Toyota Camrys from 1993, you know, and it's fine. Like it's totally fine. But that we do have areas that are a little more curated and require kind of something more interesting or special. And that's our RADwood royalty section.
Okay.
So we created a space where we curate. See, like a lot of these cars on the lawn that you're seeing would be RADwood royalty. So those cars we typically display in an area that's a little more kind of premium parking, and we create sort of a display around them, right? So they're not just parked in a parking spot in a grid like you would at Cars and Coffee. They're in a separate area where they have, you know, where they get cool backdrops and there's more space around them. And, you know, I'll put like contemporary rivals together, or create kind of a cool, you know, scene with, as you see here, with like off-road trucks or whatever. And it's kind of creating another sort of event within the event. It's a different kind of area that has a different vibe and makes for really great photography and everything. And so for that, you know, hold right there with this Daihatsu real quick. For that, yes, it's RADwood royalty, right? We've had everything from Bugatti EB110s to, you know, Vectors and everything in between in that space. But that Daihatsu Charade, it would probably be in RADwood royalty because it's an absolutely perfect Daihatsu Charade. You never ever see that, right? So so that's RADwood royalty. As a matter of fact, this guy we know, Danny George, used to drift. He brought out his absolutely perfect Suzuki Swift to RADwood SoCal last year, and he was I parked him next to like a super cool R5 Renault Turbo, right? Like, and that's and like those, it was like a little hatch scene, but it's like, and people were stoked on it. As a matter of fact, like Larry Chen, like, you know, he came out and covered the event, and he featured the Suzuki Swift as one of his like 10 cars of the entire show.
Yeah, I saw that.
Because he was so stoked on it. Because it's just, you know, so we see stuff like that, right? And we love that kind of stuff. I mean, the quirkier, the weirder, the better, right? Of course. But it's just the main thing is really all about having fun, right? That we want to have a good time. Like, you know, it's hard to take yourself seriously out there when you're wearing a pink, neon pink suit with like crazy hair or whatever, you know. It's just we're all having a great time out there. You know, we've heard cosplay a lot and all that. I mean, some of it is that, but it's really just, it's all about putting a smile on people's faces, and we love that people get so into it. You know, the crazier the better.
Yeah, no, that's great. I saw right there the do you say VRAD or VRAD, or how are you saying these virtual events that you've started?
That's right. Yeah. So we started doing virtual events, you know, in COVID times, right? We kind of sort of one of the first in the industry to really kick off a virtual experience. And, you know, we obviously can't hold in-person events. Our events average, you know, several thousand people. So it's something that can't be done now. So we decided, okay, how do we create a cool experience online? And what do we call it? We came up with, you know, well, you have virtual RADwood, right? And that's what that is. It's really an opportunity for people to share their cars through a hashtag, and you know, the hashtag RADwood in this case for the first one. And you know, we included a popular vote, so we allowed people to kind of engage with us and interact and select who they wanted, you know, to win each category. And we only chose Raddest and Show, but the rest of the categories, you know, Raddest Truck, Raddest Import, Raddest Domestic, we had Raddest Accessory, Raddest Dress. All of these are actually chosen by our community, and they win really cool prizes, everything from set of Michelin tires to, you know, Haggerty HTC memberships. And we had like, you know, all sorts of cool prizes from a bunch of our sponsors, and of course a rad swag kit from us. And most importantly, you know what, I actually should have grabbed it. I have one trophy in the garage. We have our Agro Crag kind of old school Nickelodeon inspired awards, and they're actually like this crazy like laser cut steel thing. But yeah, so it's just a way for people to continue having fun with their cars and sharing their cars out there. And then we incorporate a conversation, right? For this first event, it was all about the cars. And then for our second event, RADwood too, we actually had some of our partners and people in the industry kind of come on live with us after the event, and we basically talked about what we were seeing out there, and you know, all that. And so the whole thing is really kind of trying to commit a day where you actually have an event. Like you have a RADwood on a Saturday, for example, as you would normally, right? You would go to a venue and hang out with people. And so we've created a way to do that through different conversations with people throughout the day. You know, we have different interviews and that sort of thing. But yeah, that's what.
And the sponsors are reacting positive to the virtual version of your events as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's definitely helpful that, you know, I'm sure you're aware that a lot of people had budget to do stuff in person, right? So that's no longer being used. So,
yeah.
But the fact of the matter is that, you know, we do have a really good following, and we you know, we have a very engaged community of people that love to interact with us. And so that's an opportunity for our partners to not only, you know, of course, promote their products in whatever their companies, but also an opportunity to talk about themselves and really also discuss what we're seeing out there, right? As the cars are coming in, as these hashtags are being, you know, as we analyze these hashtags and seeing all the cool stuff. And so it's really an opportunity for people to share about what their company's about, but also about themselves as a car person. So yeah.
Well, your sponsors and your partners are very like relevant, you know, partners anyway. They're not, you know, just out of the blue folks. They're really, you know, brands that want to engage and they're part of kind of the scene. So
exactly,
I think it's great for them. Yeah.
Yeah, there's some other stuff up our sleeve, you know, that I'm working on more lifestyle brands. So like a Vans or a Reebok or, you know, stuff like that. You know, of course, Hot Wheels is out in the forefront right now doing cool, innovative stuff online. And, you know, we're talking to them. And so it's definitely, you know, helpful to work with people who are, you know, innovative and want to be part of like the next thing. And they also inject, you know, their own creativity, which is helpful too, you know, as we have these discussions. And from that, you're going to see some stuff coming here in the near future that are actually dedicated events for our partners, right? So we can have something like a Acura week or something, right? Where we focus on Acura and we talk about their heritage in this era and the DNA that is now in the cars that you see now. And, you know, talk maybe with some of the designers that design some of the iconic cars, you know, like the NSX or the Legend or, you know, things like that. So yeah, it's cool to right now people want to be entertained more than anything, right? So this is an easy platform for us to do that.
You need to get an official hairspray partner.
That's a good call. Yeah, Aquanet. What was it back then?
I forgot, but
not only that, he needs a what is it? Something like Brute or High Karate or someone else to bring into the mix there.
There you go, like Jovan. What was it? Musk something?
Yes.
Or Calvin.
Musk.
Oh, yeah, or Calvin Klein, right? Calvin Klein B.
Yeah. There you go.
Hey, so Art, before you started started RADwood, did any of you guys have any experience at all in putting on a car show or anything like this?
Well, with Driving While Awesome, we did put on the rallies, and you know, and we do also kind of head up the Cars and Coffee up here. But before that, even kind of just because, as I mentioned, you know, especially at GoPro, I did get a lot of freedom to really pursue the motorsport and the automotive vertical. And you know, me being a car guy, and you know, the co-founder, you know, and CEO Nick Woodman is also a car guy, and so basically I got a lot of leeway there to pursue that and to be flexible and creative. And part of that involved putting on events and things like that. But even before that, I used to organize kind of local car meets and stuff, you know, back in the Honda days. And so not that I had experience then, I just did it. You know, it was just like, all right, like, what do people want to do? They want to drive on cool roads and hang out. So I put together a little route, and we would meet at a big parking lot near the beach and have a barbecue. And so I've always been passionate about building kind of community and kind of enthusiasm around cars and car culture. But each of us individually, like Lane all the way in the left there in that picture that you're looking at there, Lane Skelton, he came from a marketing background in the automotive space. He worked with a carbon fiber company, so he was working with events and at events a lot. Warren, who's next to him there over to the right, he works, historically, he's been sort of a shop manager. He didn't necessarily have event experience, but a lot of operational experience that was very helpful for us as an organization and has been. And then the other guy there is me. and then Brian McQueen all the way to the right. He actually doesn't have event experience, but it's kind of funny. He actually has had a lot of motorsport experience, and that all kind of ties into everything really, right? So being in the community, and so it's kind of been great to have people that have their own sort of strengths in different areas. And there's a couple more folks here that are pivotal to the organization that are not part of Driving While Awesome, which is what you're looking at here, like Rick Deakin. He's a car guy, did a podcast thing, but also he has a tech and security background, so that and finance and all that. So all of those things help, right? And then Brad Brownell, who now writes for Jalopnik. He's been in the automotive scene for a while now, and he's, so that helps on the media side of things with those connections and things like that.
So you don't put DWA on the RADwood site or anything like that. Are you purposely keeping them separate, or are they?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah. So it's kind of a weird thing, but yeah, technically Driving While Awesome and RADwood are two separate companies. There's three of us on Driving While Awesome that are part of RADwood, and so one of them isn't. One of us isn't, so that is why they're separate. It's kind of Did
he insult one of you guys? What's the deal?
Yeah, he did insult me once. Yeah, because my beard was getting too gray, and I didn't appreciate his commentary on my graying beard. But yeah, isn't
that another potential sponsor for you then, Art? Just for Men, you could go in with them as well in a collaboration.
That's a good call. Yeah. So it is kind of a funny thing because we have quite a bit of freedom to promote RADwood as a separate organization and and tap into a whole other group of people. But yeah, it is something that we've considered and we've discussed, and I think in the future that may change. Because it is an important kind of asset and part of everything that we do. But as of now, yeah, it's still a separate organization.
And the rally part is part of Driving While Awesome, correct? DWA.
That's right. Yeah.
So,
yeah. But the rallies, I guess one thing I didn't clarify is that it did start as an 80s and 90s thing, but over time we've started to include more people and more cars, rather, more different types of cars in different eras. It's still, if you look at a bell curve, the core of them are going to be 80s and 90s cars, but we have some modern cars and some older cars. For us, the most important thing is that it's good people. And also we say that it's a car that has sense of occasion, right? It's something that's interesting that you take out to enjoy it. And also a conversation starter, something that people want to see, right? Like out there, because, we know that a new GTI is a fantastic car and it drives great and it can be fun, but it's not the most exciting thing out there to have as a group of moving car show, if you will. Right. But yeah, we have everything from, GT3 RSs to, no kidding, Chevy Sprint Turbo or something, in the mix. So we like RADwood, we appreciate the interesting and the fun and the quirky, and especially, because again, it creates for a cool experience, and those types of people are always more fun, right?
Absolutely. There are some really cool cars back from the 80s and 90s that I remember. I don't know if I've seen any yet on your RADwood site, but remember the Cyclone and
oh yeah.
You guys had that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we've had both Typhoons and Cyclones.
Cyclone.
Yeah, we've had.
I remember test driving that.
Oh really?
Oh yeah,
when awesome.
I was at Road and Track, I drove. I got to drive a lot of those cars from. I started in '90 awesome. There, so yeah, I started in 1990.
Perfect.
So yeah.
That's fantastic. Oh yeah, you got so that right there that we have highlighted or that someone pulled up. That is the Viper concept.
It looks like the concept. Yeah, that was on our cover.
Yeah. It's so awesome to see how close they got with the production car too. I mean, the obviously the super rake windshield didn't make it, and then I don't know if there's a side profile photo there, but these had kind of headers that stuck out from behind the fender. It was like this really cool, you could kind of see the exhaust manifold through it, and of course that's not very safe, but you know, little details like that, they really nailed it with the Dodge Viper concept. It was such a cool car. But we've had cars like that. We've had there's a really kind of obscure but very culty movie called The Wraith from the 80s with Charlie Sheen, and it was a street racing movie, but it was like sci-fi, and there was an alien that came and drove this car. So that car was at RADwood, Detroit. So that car was about 10 feet away from that Viper concept that you just showed.
Who owned that car, the Wraith car?
It's owned by Dodge.
Oh, they still own it. Okay, so they
still own it. They own both cars. Yeah. So so the Wraith car is pretty interesting. It was actually a pace car for an Indy race, but it's a totally one-off bespoke thing. But it has a 4-cylinder, basically a Dodge. You know, was it a 2.4 that they had and everything then, or a 2.2? I can't remember.
2.2.
Something like 2.2, right? They came in like a LeBaron turbo or something, right?
Yeah, twin turbo.
So it was a fully built twin turbo version of that with a Cosworth head, I think, or something like that. And it made decent power, and it was pretty functional, but really bizarre car, and just definitely a showstopper, right? So we have really cool stuff like that, in addition to, of course, people bringing out.
You should have invited Charlie Sheen to come out.
I know, right? Yeah, maybe he would have right now, right? These days. Yeah, we've seen some celebrities at our events. I mean, in Orange County, the last event we had, John Malkovich came out, and I didn't know.
You're kidding.
Yeah, I didn't know he was a car guy, and apparently he totally is. And
he was
just hanging out.
Oh my God. He was just in the Starfleet or whatever, right? Star Force.
Right. Star Force, yeah, exactly. Yeah, so and a lot of those folks, you know, come out and are pretty low key, and you know, they just kind of, you know, they just hang out, and everyone's cool with that, you know. But I mean, I definitely have considered reaching out to some folks. That's that skateboarder there he's pretty legendary. That's Sal Barbier. He's like,
Sal Barbier. Yeah,
he's like arguably the best street skater ever.
Yeah.
And so he's obviously of the era and super cool dude. And I met him at an event, and you know, a while back.
He's a car dude, right?
Yeah. As a matter of fact, he's got I think he's got a Cyclone. Does he have a Cyclone? Oh no, he's got a Lightning. He's got a Ford Lightning.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, he's got a Ford Lightning, and he has a Fox body that is all like salined out. It's not an actual saline, but he built a saline out of it. So yeah, he's a total 80s and 90s car guy, and he's like super legit too. Like he wrenches on all his own stuff, and he knows his stuff. Really cool guy. I met him at a Michelin event, and I was like, "Sal, is it a Michelin event? What is this about?" And it turns out he's a total car dude, and it's pretty rad. But yeah, he's become a good friend of ours, and this has now become a pretty iconic shot. And we're really pumping Overcrest podcast right now. They should be stoked. But this is a pretty iconic photo now that has been kind of making the rounds on the web and everything. And we wanted to recreate kind of that spirit of the 80s and 90s where they used to do this kind of thing, right? Where the jumping cars was kind of a classic move back then.
Hey, I got a really quick question here, Art, is when the COVID, this whole thing is done, you know, let's say things get back to normal in 2021, God willing. Are the RADwood shows, are they always set at the same locations at, you know, is there a set schedule and a set venue, or are they going to be random all the time?
That's a great question. Ideally, we want to find venues that we could go back to, you know, and it's every time we have an event at a different place, we discovered new things, right? And it's like, okay, well, maybe we could do this better. And so we have to seek out another location. There are some locations that we will reuse for sure. Like Philadelphia, for example, the Navy Yard is a phenomenal venue for us. It's an old World War II yard, but it's very reminiscent of like the Back to the Future clock towers, like that vibe, you know, like it's got a really kind of 80s vibe to it. And it's all brick and it's beautiful, great backdrops, right on the water. You know, the Detroit venue is pretty solid, but they're building something else there. So we might have to move somewhere else. And so that we have to, what ends up happening is we either outgrow the venue. Like Austin, we did it 2 years in a row. Absolutely love the location. It's been great. We can fit, you know, thousands of people, lots of parking. I think we may have hit capacity this year in February when we had the event there before COVID. So we are kind of on the fence right now whether or not we go back. And it's unfortunate. I mean, I would love to keep it more consistent. So it's, people kind of, it's almost like becomes sort of a
mark it on your calendar kind of a thing.
Exactly. Yeah. But now it's, it's complicated when you're dealing with so many people and so many cars. We average about 500 to 700 cars depending on the venue.
That's a lot.
And so that's the thing, right? Is like we've discussed scaling it back and maybe allowing 300 so that we could then commit to something, but it's challenging, right? That's in Detroit there.
You want it bigger. Yeah.
Well, that's a great venue.
What about SoCal?
So SoCal, so that's again, the Orange County venue that we chose last year, it was awesome, but it did have some major limitations. And one thing that it's obvious, right? You'd think, but one thing that I learned is you have got to have a covered space if you have any potential for rain, right? And like if it's later in the year, even if it's LA in December, that's what happened to us, and it was pretty brutal, and it was all grass, and that was a big challenge, right? So for all of our flagship events, even if they're in the summer, like I want to do them have at least half a covered space so that people have a place to go if it does rain. But that was the thing with LA. We love the venue. It was a great location, very photogenic. We could fit a ton of people, but that's kind of a big problem. So we're looking at a couple of different locations, and we were already in talks with one of our major sponsors to actually book a location that is mostly indoors, and then it has some outdoor location. There's that header shot.
Look at that. Wow.
But so it is unfortunately kind of changing, but we do have some locations that we will reuse.
Okay. How many shows do you guys aim for per year?
So historically we've done about 10 to, historically we've done about 10 to 12, but we want to scale it back a little bit. We want to do more quality over quantity, and maybe really have the events be bigger but more lifestyle centric. So the cars will remain the platform, and that's what people will mostly come to see, but adding more music and more entertainment so that it's more appealing to a wider group of people. So we already have a lot of people who, like as a matter of fact, like my wife's coworkers like wanted to go to RADwood and SoCal because they want to dress up and listen to 80s and 90s music. They don't care about cars at all, but that's fine, and it's interesting to see also how people that are not car people still interact with the cars, and they are so stoked on them because everybody has a story and a connection to something, right? Even if it's not a fancy car, like, it could be this is kind of cliche now, I always use this one, but it could be an 85 Toyota Tercel 4x4 with a plaid interior, right? It's like grandma's car that they drove up to the mountain, and like they remember riding in that car as a kid, and like, so there's that, and people will love it and take pictures with it, and that's what it's all about, that tapping into that nostalgia, right? So so yeah, in a nutshell though, the idea is to really scale it down a little bit, possibly 8 events a year, and focus on larger regional areas. So you could, if you hit, somewhere like LA, Orange County, you're going to capture that whole kind of SoCal space. San Francisco, obviously, Pacific Northwest, Seattle, Philadelphia, and something central like Detroit, and then something like maybe in Austin where you get the Midwest and the South. And maybe squeeze in a couple more as opportunities arise. A lot of folks are reaching out with trying to do something in the motorsport world. And we're open to that, and we have discussions going, with folks about that as well. But yeah, that's what we're thinking.
So Art, can you give me your top, maybe let's go top 5 cars from the 80s, 90s? Your personal ones, not the ones you've seen at RADwood. I want to hear your personal. And it'd be nice to hear the ones you loved when you were growing up. When you were a teenager, you go, "Oh, that's the one." And if they still are your car. So go ahead. Let's go. I don't know if you have them numbered already, but you can start from 5 and up to 1.
Well, one thing that I can tell you now, and it's probably evident, and Taro knows this, I'm a very verbose person, so I can talk all day, and I can give you top 5 when I was a kid and top 5 now.
Let's do that then. Let's go top 5 when you were a kid.
And maybe there's overlap.
Top 5 before your first girlfriend.
Top 5 before my first girlfriend. Okay, so that was 3. No, I'm just kidding.
You are an early bloomer, my man.
Fast mover.
So my favorite car growing up as a kid was always the F40 and still is the F40. You know, it's kind of, I know it's kind of cliche and it's not an imaginative answer.
Great car.
But it's still my favorite car. I think what has happened though over time is you know, as you grow up and you learn more about cars, it's become more and more and more specific. And my favorite car, period, is the GTLM. I think, or is it it's the F40 LM Pilot liveried car that they raced at Le Mans. So, and it's a blue car. And
Well, that's a race car though, right?
It's a race car, and that's my favorite car. Like, period. Like that. That's all I want in life. It's just such a cool car. But you know, that's that car. And then another car that I loved growing up, believe it or not, was actually a Fox body Mustang, a Cobra. I as a kid, I loved Fox body Cobras, and you know, I wanted a teal one. And you know, they're super cool. I still like them. It's not necessarily, I wouldn't throw it into the top 5, but as a kid, it was like the coolest thing, you know. And
well, this is your top 5 as a kid, right? It's
as a kid, yeah. So what I'm doing now is I'm bridging them, you know, because it's just easier. So, so I'll tell you. But no, I remember, you know, like a neighbor having a GT and doing a burnout, and like that, you know, that was just like very formative for me or whatever. So let's see. As a kid, Countach was definitely up there. A white Countach.
That was everyone's.
Yeah, that was one of mine for mine for sure.
Literally poster car, right? I had one on my wall.
LP 400 or 500. See?
Yeah, exactly.
Are you a simple guy, or you like the wing? You know.
I'm a simple guy. Yeah,
You're actually 400.
Yeah, 400. I don't want the cladding as much and all that. As a matter of fact, I mean, this might be sacrilegious to even say, I actually like me like a 5000S with no wing, like just like really clean, sharp, like angles. And everyone knows that the wing doesn't do anything anyways, like besides looking cool. But or if you like that, but I love the shape without it. It's so cool. It's like a little. It reminds me of like playing with Matchbox or with Hot Wheels, you know, just like it's like this little toy. And let's see what else.
Yeah, that's 3. You got 2 more.
3 more. All right. Two more. Of the era of all time. Yeah, because I have so many race cars in my head, but I'm trying to stick.
But when you're a kid now, a kid.
Oh, they were still with the kids. All right.
Yeah. You got top 5 when you were a kid here.
Wow, Sam, you're so demanding here. Jeez Louise, he's dragging poor us over the coals. It's not just you're dragging and leaving him on the coals at this point, Sam. Come on.
James Googling can't keep up.
Yeah. How about let's see. So we said Countach already. What other car did I love as a kid?
Oh, we could just do top 3.
Yeah, when did you get into Japanese cars, though? I mean, and Hondas.
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah. So Hondas came out pretty early. I was probably like 19, maybe something like that. Right. Yeah, but as a young kid, I was definitely like pre-driving. I was definitely more into Euro and US and domestic stuff. Okay. It wasn't until I was about 19 that I really got into Japanese cars. And especially after I went to Japan for the first time, like in 2003. Yeah. Then everything changed. I was like all in on Japanese stuff, and so. Let's see if I can squeeze in a couple more as a kid. The other one that definitely stands out for me is actually not a car at all. It's a Ford Bronco. And I really like the one before OJ. Like as a little kid, that was such a cool car to me.
OJ.
Before OJ.
Pre-OJ, yeah.
Pre-OJ, you know, the Eddie Bauer edition, right? Like that was the one to have, and it's so that was a really cool car to me. I really like those things. I especially liked the blue Eddie Bauer. Most people think of the green one, I think, but there's the navy blue one, right? I think there's one in there.
Yeah.
That was a big one. And then I think another one that I really liked that was not Radwood era, but actually, are we only talking Radwood era now? Are we talking?
Yeah, Radwood era.
Oh, okay, never mind. Yeah, because
we're plugging your show. We're plugging your show here, bud.
I know. 69 Camaro is still one of my favorites, but it was a big one back then, like a Z28. I think we're just gonna move to the current 80s and 90s favorites because I can't remember. But F40 overlaps, right? We talked about that. And now it's got to be some of the Japanese stuff, right? So we throw in an Acura Integra Type R. Like that's definitely one of my favorite cars. and it's a Japanese one of the era.
Mhm.
I'm a big fan of the US spec 97, like that one right in the middle right there. I like the early 97 front end with the different bumper. And it's US spec. I mean, everyone likes the JDM ones. Like the JDM front end is cool, but and you know, after in 98 or 99, sorry, 99, we got the different front end here, and I prefer the early one.
So you're an Integra Type R guy. Out of all the Type Rs that Honda's made, you're an Integra guy.
Exactly. Yeah, I like a 97 Acura Integra Type R, and that's very specific because it's a US spec or North America spec car, and it's just the whole package. The fact that it was like that, you know, obviously that Honda campaigned it as an Acura here, and everything that it meant in motorsport for that company in the US, and you know, I can go on and nerd out pretty deep, but that's definitely one of my favorite cars of the era. F40's obvious. I'm gonna go with. This is I see again. It's kind of not an imaginative thing. I wish it was more creative, but the roof Yellowbird, definitely one of my favorite cars ever.
Yeah.
And it's definitely a car I want to drive.
That's a legend. That's a legend.
Yeah.
Yeah, Road and Track made that car famous.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. That car is.
We did the first high-speed test on that thing.
Such a cool thing at the very top for me, and a car that I strive to own and is on my list right now is. Like a relatively attainable goal, and it's kind of a version of this car, is a 964 turbo. So I love 964 turbos, and
Me
I
too.
want one.
Me too.
They're
We got
great.
priced out of the market because they were going for, like, when I was thinking of buying one, they were going for like 30 grand back then, you know?
Right.
Like about 8-9 years ago, 10 years ago, but now they're way up there, you know?
Right. So these cars, they've kind of like the 964 in general. They were pretty unloved for a while, right? It was kind of like the weird redheaded stepchild, if you will, of the air-cooled world. And then all of a sudden, people were like, "Oh man, this is where it's at," right? And like for me, the 964 Turbo in particular is awesome because you have the combination of, as I mentioned, conceptually everything that we do. It's the combination of modernity, but classicness, if you will, right? It still feels old school. It's still analog. It still feels like an old Porsche, but it's got coilover suspension. It's got the modern bumpers. And I think those bumpers work really well with the hips because they're kind of boxy and square. I actually prefer narrow bodies in the earlier cars, but the 964 has got to be a wide body. Like for me, it's the look. What really transformed me is I've driven 964s and I've driven, basically fully built ones and stuff. But a friend of mine has a very special homologation car. It's called the 964 Turbo S2, and it was homologated for the I think it was the Bridgestone GT Challenge or something like that. It was an IMSA support race in the early 90s, and so they built 20-ish of these cars. They look like a standard 964 Turbo. You would never know. They just have an S2 badge in the trunk and or on the engine lid. And so this car has a gigantic turbo, a reworked head, different valve train, and a few other little things. But it's a spec kind of homologated car, so they don't have a lot of options or anything like that. They kind of come as a spec a certain way. And I can nerd out really deep on what this car is, but I'll refrain from doing that because I don't want to take up too much every time. People can look it up. Very, very underrated on paper. They were rated for some reason around 320 horsepower. My friend dynoed his completely stock and it made 400 at the rear wheels. This is a car that does not have traction control. It's a 5-speed manual rear-wheel drive. It is the most fun I've ever had in a car. I've driven it several times. I love this car, and I would love to build sort of a tribute to this car in that fashion. People talk about the 930 turbo lag. Like, oh, it's a Widowmaker or whatever. It's comical how tame that is compared to this car. This car literally makes no power below like 4,000 RPM, like nothing. Like it feels like maybe I swear it's got to be like 75 horsepower. Like it's nothing. And then you get to 4 and it gives you 100% of the power within like 200 RPM. It's like so fun.
Switch, huh?
Yeah, it's really, really, really addicting. And it's obviously very engaging and challenging. And like it's got the G55 speed, so it's not like the 4 super long legged. So it's definitely more workable. And when you're in the twisties, like you're constantly thinking ahead. Okay, where am I going to be in the rev range after this turn or into this turn, and like it's this really fun game to play. And but I love everything about these cars. I love the way the steering feels. I love the brakes. They have a very firm analog brake. It's, even though they are boosted, they feel like they're not. It feels like you're doing all the work, and it's just they're such great looking cars. I mean, I love everything about them. I mean, it's definitely up there again with all of these cars. Hence one of my top 5 favorites.
Did you drive the S2 on the track or the street?
I drove it up here on mountain roads.
Okay.
So on some of the best, I mean, mountain roads. So like something like, you know, kind of like the stuff that you would have in the Angeles Forest and and up there, like something similar to that. Yeah. So that type of environment. On a weekday with no one around, if you will, and I was chasing a 993 turbo, so it was
when you mean chasing, you mean chasing it exactly to the speed limit and stopping right there, of course.
Right. I mean, yeah, exactly. We're just kind of we hit a theoretical wall at 66 miles an hour sometimes, you know, just,
give or take. Yeah, it does happen.
Give or take. I mean, in those, you know, everyone knows that the what do you call not the ref counter, but the speedometers are not super accurate in the old cars. So,
and this is 92, so this is when they already went to the 3.6 liter, you know, because right?
So yeah. So they didn't actually with this car. They used a 3.3 for the series, and so it is a 3.3. That's a good observation. It's still the smaller displacement motor.
Oh, it is. It's not the 3.3. Yeah, it's not the big one.
Right. Yeah. It's not a 3.6, and so it's because it was homologated that way.
Okay.
And yeah. So, but yeah, that's that. And then let's see. I think I have one car left, right?
If you want.
Yeah.
The last one.
The last one. I'm trying to go Japanese on this, you know, just because it's.
Well, you already got one in. You got Acura.
You got the Integra Type R in there.
Yeah.
But it needs a Japanese car, not an American Japanese car.
There's JDM.
Oh, right. Yeah. I barely squeak in. R34 99. I barely squeak in.
Oh, that's barely squeaking in. I thought you were going to go R32.
No. I mean, I'm actually a really big fan of the R33, even though people don't like them. I think they're super cool. I really like them a lot. I especially like, what was it, like that 400R or something like that?
Yeah. That was the
that is like.
Yeah, but that was the R33. They did
R33. Yeah. The R33 400R is awesome. It's such a cool car. But I mean, R34 it definitely trumps it overall for me. I mean, it's where it's at. And it's 99 barely squeaking in. It counts just like a 99 M Coupe.
Barely good.
Barely.
Yeah, just like a 99 M Coupe would count at one of our shows, or you know, or on the other end, a 1979 Scirocco, right? So we have a little bit of leeway for people out there. You know, we're not super strict. If the car's carried over, you know, we would allow it at Radwood.
Yeah, we were at Top Rank yesterday, checking out all the GTRs. Yeah, over there.
The R33s are trickling in, right?
They are, from January this year, and the R34s should be available from 2024. So 4 more years.
Yeah.
4 more years.
Yeah. I actually worked with a guy who was one of the Motorex guys, so I got a lot of insight. Know that madness. I don't know if we don't discuss that, but
that's fine.
Which Motorex guy you're talking about? There's a few of them.
But. There's a few of them. Yeah, totally. I'll tell you offline maybe.
Okay.
But yeah, R34 GTR is definitely one of my favorite cars. I mean, they're so cool. And Dino from Speed Hunters, as you probably know him. I mean,
Dino, I love Dino.
Yeah, he's a great friend. And I'm so jealous. Like I've known him for a long time, and he's never let me drive his car. But maybe someday I'll get him. I'll get him. I'll have to get him on camera after a long ramen and Asahi Super Dry stint to commit to letting me drive his car. But I still haven't driven one. Which is kind of pathetic. I mean, because I love this car so much and everything, but it's right there. It's relatively attainable.
Let Jay Leno drive one. I don't think he drove Dino's car, but one of Jay Leno's garage in the internet shows, and you guys can look it up. Yeah. There's, if you put like Jay Leno's garage, Skyline GTR R34 or something, that video will probably come up where
nice,
where we did it with them. So
that's fantastic.
Is that when You were a tour guide in Japan?
Yeah, where I was, yeah, he hired me to go with him. So I go, all right, Jay.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Oh, that's when you were you were the fixer or whatever.
I was the fixer.
He's still the
Yeah, yeah.
fixer. He's still the fixer.
That's my favorite job when I get to be the fixer.
Well, no, but the thing was funny because his people came and says, hey, Jay knows you're he's Japanese car expert, whatever. He reads your stuff all the time. Would you be willing to, spend 3-4 days with him in Japan? I go, well, I'm kind of busy. They go, well, give us a price of what per day price. So I gave him the price, right? And said yes right away. And I'm going, damn, I should have went higher.
Right. Yeah, that's always the case, right?
Went too low.
Yeah, that yes came so fast. I go, damn it. But,
yeah, for sure. But yeah, that's still a dream car. I mean, in my dream garage, it would definitely be in there. I would want a white, Nismo'd out one. That's what I'd go with. Gold. Growing up, I guess since these came out, and since I've been into them, I always wanted gold CE28s on there, but maybe I'd get more creative now because I would get like some really obscure like Impuls or something, that were on a race car. That's where my mind is.
What's another sleeper that I like from that era was, do you remember the Mercedes-Benz 500E?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
With a Porsche engine in it?
Yeah, totally. Actually, you know what? Now that you mentioned it, if the 99 R34, now that I've harped on it for so long, if you're not going to allow me that one, the other car that is now maybe top 6, top 5 for me is an AMG C126. So it's actually not the 500E. It's the earlier car. So it's the wide body.
Oh, the coupe, right?
The wide body coupe. So I would do like an AMG with I think it's a 6.2 liter or 6 liter maybe.
6 liter.
Yeah, 6 liter V8, wide body. I mean, absolutely stunning car. They're super cool. I love that car. Oh, there's one right there on the right side, upper right. Mercedes C126 560 SEC AMG. That is definitely a car that I would love to have as part of my collection. I would daily drive that.
We're going to let you slide with the R34. So
okay, all right. Well, we're fine. Now we kept a couple Japanese cars in there.
Okay, we are kind of starting to wind up here. Been on for an hour. It seemed like really 20 minutes. So
right, yeah.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Many tales. Is there anything you want to plug here? Coming up from RADwood or even Driving While Awesome, DWI, any of those?
Sure, yeah. So RADwood, we're
DWA, I'm sorry.
No worries. Yeah, we're pretty much everywhere at RADwood Official. So Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all that. Check us out there. That's where you're going to see content kind of pumping through right now. Cool stuff, cool partnerships, our events, of course. We announced them there first. Our website, radwood.org. We have some really awesome merch right now. We're actually wrapping up our merch line. So cool shirts and designs coming through right now.
Like that hat you're wearing?
Like this hat that I'm wearing, definitely. This is one of them. And then on the Drive While Awesome side of things, it's drivewhileawesome.com. You can find information about our rallies, our other events that we put on. And our podcast, of course, is on any platform out there, iTunes. You can find it on Stitcher and blah, blah, blah. And pretty much any
and
podcast
James,
platform.
on point. Look at that.
Dang, James.
He's on it. Yeah. And, sorry, and then on Instagram as well, social media, drivewhileawesome.com and YouTube. But
and
YouTube
congrats on the baby.
Oh, yeah. So, I got a little one. She's 6-ish weeks old now. That one picture at the
2
bottom
girls?
there was when she's 2 girls. Yeah.
Oh, man. Is the factory closed?
Yeah, I hope so. I think I'm done. Yeah. But yeah, it's definitely been a interesting ride recently, with all the stuff, trying to figure out a way to reinvent what we're doing and adapt to COVID and situations, and then trying to, deal with the little one as well. It's been pretty crazy, but obviously super fun and rewarding with the little ones.
Yeah, she's adorable. That's great.
Thank you. Yeah. That's crazy how much they change, right? It's like that one picture at the bottom is 1 week old, and then in the upper left is 6 weeks. And
I know.
they start to become people, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, Art, hey, thank you so much for spending time with us. You're welcome to hang on and stay with us for the rest of the show. Let's see. I go over some future car stuff.
Cool.
Taro has some stuff that he covers, and then James is our motorsports guy, so he'll be talking a little bit more about motorsports. So it's
Cool,
up to you.
yeah.
If you have to go, that's fine. You know, we totally understand.
No worries. Yeah, I'm actually checking right now to see if I can squeeze in a little more time. I might stick around for another 15 minutes or so.
That's
Well,
awesome.
if that's the case, then I think Sam has to put the sunglasses on and see if we can find the reality between.
Well, if my next section is up, I have to because
It's you go.
Yeah,
you
let's
go,
see
Sam.
it.
I can't see my.
Oh, there he is.
That does not look like my sunglasses.
Every time
my
I want it,
glasses.
just.
But
it
this
just does it
is
for me.
also, I found, Tara, what's surprising is I caught some I caught some surprising footage of Sam Matani actually dancing.
Oh yeah, I just saw
Oh,
that.
there
Oh
he
my
is.
God, where is that
Nice.
in Russia? Is that in Russia?
And not
Yeah.
only that,
Oh my
but
God. Was that
he's a
Steven
bad man. Just remember that, Tara, so we can't say anything bad about it. Can't say it.
Yeah.
Bad man.
Look at that. Yeah, that's Sam up there eating the carrot.
That's awesome.
It's like, it doesn't even look like my glasses.
It is
They're
your
you.
glasses,
identical.
Sam.
They're identical, James. Yeah.
They're
Art,
the exact same glasses.
Oh, man, you're losing points with me here, buddy. Those are cheap knockoffs.